He escaped maximum security prison twice. The second time, through a mile-long tunnel dug right under his cell. Hundreds of men worked in secret for months to free him, and it worked. This is the story of the most powerful, most dangerous, and most wanted drug lord in history. El Chapo, the man who built an empire worth billions, the man who corrupted an entire government, the man who escaped prison twice, and the man who now sits alone in a concrete cell forever. Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera was born on April 4, 1957, in La Tuna, a tiny village hidden deep in the mountains of Sinaloa, Mexico. There was no electricity, no running water, no schools, just poverty. His father, Emilio Guzman, was a cattle farmer and opium poppy grower. He was also violent and abusive. Joaquin and his siblings grew up in fear. By the time Joaquin was a teenager, he had already learned one lesson. The world was cruel, and only the strongest survived. By age 15, he was growing and selling marijuana in the mountains. Not because he wanted to, because he had no choice. This was the only way out of poverty. This was the beginning of El Chapo. In the late 1970s, Joaquin moved down from the mountains and connected with local drug traffickers. He was ambitious, intelligent, and completely fearless. He joined the Guadalajara Cartel, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico at the time. His boss was Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known as the godfather of Mexican drug trafficking. El Chapo was a fast learner. He studied every aspect of the drug trade: logistics, smuggling routes, bribing officials. He became one of the most valuable members of the cartel. By 1989, when the Guadalajara cartel collapsed, El Chapo was ready. He formed his own organization. The Sinaloa cartel was born. At his peak, El Chapo controlled 25% of all illegal drugs entering the United States: cocaine, heroin, marijuana, methamphetamine. His cartel was worth over $3 billion. He employed thousands of people: farmers, chemists, drivers, pilots, soldiers, lawyers. He had an entire army at his disposal. But his real power came from corruption. El Chapo had judges on his payroll, politicians, police chiefs, military generals. Entire government agencies worked for him. In Mexico during the 1990s and 2000s, El Chapo was more powerful than the government itself. He was completely untouchable. But power came with a price. The Sinaloa cartel was not the only cartel in Mexico. There were others who wanted the same territory, the same roots, the same power. What followed was one of the bloodiest periods in Mexican history: the Cartel Wars. El Chapo fought brutal battles against the Tijuana Cartel, the Juarez Cartel, and later the Zetas. Thousands of people were killed. Entire cities lived in terror. Mass graves were discovered across Mexico. Journalists who reported on the cartels were murdered. Police who resisted were executed. El Chapo showed no mercy to his enemies, and his enemies showed no mercy to innocent people caught in the middle. El Chapo had multiple wives and at least 9 children. His most famous wife, Emma Coronel Aispuro, was a former beauty queen. She was just 18 years old when they married. He was 46. She was beautiful, loyal, and completely devoted to him. His sons became known as Los Chapitos: Joaquin Jr., Ivan, Alfredo, and others. El Chapo trained them in the business from a young age. Family meant everything to him. He would do anything to protect them. But family also became his greatest weakness. It was his love for his family that would eventually lead to his downfall. In 1993, El Chapo was arrested in Guatemala and extradited to Mexico. He was sent to Puente Grande, supposedly Mexico's most secure prison. But El Chapo never stopped working. From inside prison, he continued running his cartel. He bribed guards. He bribed administrators. He had a mobile phone in his cell. He held meetings with cartel members inside the prison walls. Puente Grande was not a prison for El Chapo, it was just another office. And then, in January 2001, he simply walked out. According to official reports, he was hidden inside a laundry cart pushed by a corrupt prison worker. He was free, and he would remain free for 13 years. El Chapo was obsessed with tunnels. It started as a smuggling strategy and became his signature. His cartel built over 90 tunnels under the US-Mexico border. Some were simple dirt holes, others were engineering masterpieces. The most sophisticated tunnels had electricity and lighting systems, ventilation and air conditioning, hydraulic lifts and elevators, rail systems with carts to move drugs quickly. Some tunnels stretched over a mile in length. Billions of dollars worth of cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine passed through these tunnels every year. The DEA called it the most sophisticated drug smuggling infrastructure in human history. And every tunnel started with one man's obsession, El Chapo. In February 2014, El Chapo was captured again. Mexican Marines raided his hideout in Mazatlan. He was sent to Altiplano Federal Prison, the most secure prison in Mexico. The Mexican government was proud. They had finally caught him again. The world watched. But they underestimated El Chapo. On July 11, 2015, prison guards checked his cell. He was gone, vanished. In the floor of his shower was a hole, just big enough for a man to climb through. Below the hole was a tunnel, 1.5 kilometers long, with a full lighting system, ventilation, and a motorcycle mounted on rails to travel through it quickly. The tunnel had taken over a year to build. Hundreds of workers had dug in secret, right under one of Mexico's most secure prisons. El Chapo had escaped again. The world was stunned. While hiding as a fugitive, El Chapo made one of the strangest decisions of his life. He agreed to meet Hollywood actor Sean Penn in the Mexican jungle. The meeting was arranged through Mexican actress Kate del Castillo, who had a mysterious relationship with El Chapo. Penn wanted to write an article about El Chapo for Rolling Stone magazine. In October 2015, Penn and del Castillo flew deep into the Mexican jungle for a secret meeting. The meeting lasted 7 hours. El Chapo spoke openly about his life, his cartel, and his philosophy. Penn later published the article. But the meeting had consequences El Chapo never expected. Mexican intelligence had been monitoring Kate del Castillo's communications. The meeting led authorities directly to El Chapo's location. Sean Penn, one of Hollywood's most famous actors, had accidentally helped capture the world's most wanted criminal. In January 2016, Mexican Marines stormed a house in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. After a fierce gunfight, El Chapo was captured for the final time. In 2017, he was extradited to the United States, something Mexico had resisted for years. The trial began in November 2018 in New York. It was one of the most dramatic criminal trials in American history. Witness after witness took the stand. Former cartel members, government officials, drug traffickers. They described a criminal empire of unimaginable scale. Bribery, murder, corruption at the highest levels of the Mexican government. One witness claimed El Chapo had paid $100 million in bribes to former Mexican president Enrique Peña Nieto. The evidence was overwhelming. On February 12, 2019, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was found guilty on all 10 counts. Drug trafficking, money laundering, murder conspiracy, weapons charges. The judge sentenced him to life in prison plus 30 years, with no possibility of parole. He was sent to ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure prison in the United States, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. ADX Florence is unlike any prison on Earth. El Chapo spends 23 hours a day alone in a 7 by 12-foot concrete cell. No windows to the outside world, no contact with other prisoners. Fluorescent lights that never turn off. He is allowed 1 hour of exercise per day in a small concrete cage open to the sky. He cannot see other inmates. He cannot communicate with the outside world. The man who once commanded an army of thousands, the man who bribed presidents and generals, the man who escaped maximum security prison twice, now sits alone in a tiny concrete box, day after day, year after year, forever. El Chapo is gone, but the Sinaloa cartel lives on. His sons, Los Chapitos, now control the organization. The cartel has evolved and grown even more powerful. Fentanyl has replaced cocaine as their primary product, a drug so powerful that a few milligrams can kill a person. Tens of thousands of Americans die every year from fentanyl produced by the Sinaloa cartel. El Chapo's legacy is not a tunnel. It is not a prison break. His legacy is the hundreds of thousands of lives destroyed by his organization. His legacy is death on an industrial scale. El Chapo built an empire worth billions. He escaped prison twice. He corrupted an entire government. He was the most powerful criminal of his generation. And in the end, he sits alone in a concrete cell, just like Pablo Escobar before him. Power always has a price, and that price is everything. If you want more dark stories like this, subscribe to DarkVault. New stories every week. The darkest corners of history are waiting.